22-year-old Paul had always dreamed of having a family. His dream came true only after he married the love of his life, Avril. They met in college, fell in love, married soon after graduation, and had a long life staring back at them. But they were happy. Paul entered the typical family man's life he'd always dreamed of and wanted to have a baby. The couple tried for months but could not get pregnant due to Avril's health issues. So they decided to adopt a child instead, and fate led them to a newborn baby girl who was just 2 weeks old. Paul grew up in a shelter and knew the difficulties kids abandoned by their parents faced. He decided to improve one such deserted child's life and contacted the local foster home. A few days later, he got a call informing him of a newborn baby named Miley who was put for a closed adoption. Nothing could have made Paul and Avril happier that day. They shared the same views and were in this life-changing goal together. We all make mistakes, and as humans, our biggest strength is the ability to forgive. 4 years passed blissfully. Miley was now 4 years old and all set to turn 5 in just a few months when she suddenly fell ill. Sadly, the doctor's prognosis for the little girl was not pleasing to Paul and Avril. They felt their whole world crumble slowly. "We have to find a donor as soon as possible. She needs an urgent liver transplant, which can only be done through a living donor related to her," the doctor informed. A living donor who was related to her? Paul was disappointed and confused because he did not know who Miley's birth parents were, and her adoption was closed, making it impossible to track them down. "Yes, please find someone who could be related to the girl as soon as possible. A DNA test should help find any such donor. Maybe you can take the test too because you match the girl's blood group. Even if you are not related to her, there could be some miracle." Paul was distraught, and his last resort was to take the alleged DNA test. He took the test, and the results 2 weeks later stunned him. The doctor called in to reveal a piece of shocking news that would turn Paul's life upside down in mere seconds. "Mr. Frank, we have some good news. You matched the girl's DNA by 50%. You are a perfect match and a live donor." "Doctor, how is it possible? She is my adopted child, but how is my DNA matching hers?" he wondered. "And Mr. Frank, only siblings have a 50% match in their DNA because of recombination," said the doctor, aggravating Paul's doubts. "She could be your sister." The surgery was successful, and Paul was relieved his daughter was all right, but he still could not shake his thoughts off what the doctor told him. He immediately met the foster home caretaker to learn about Miley's birth parents. "I'm sorry, Mr. Frank. It was a closed adoption, and we don't have any information about the girl's parents." Paul was disappointed and sought help from John, his friend who was a private investigator. But again, his attempt failed. Ultimately, Paul recalled the DNA test results and remembered seeing another match. He rechecked the results and found that his and Miley's DNA matched with another woman named Dorothy. Paul had no idea who this woman was and began looking for her to get to the bottom of the mystery. "Hey there, I'm Paul, and I'm coming from the town nearby. I took a DNA test to find an organ donor for my adopted daughter," he said, "but I ended up being a perfect match, don't know how. Then I noticed my daughter, and I matched you as well. How is it possible, and who are you?" Dorothy burst into tears and revealed something Paul was not prepared for. "Do you know your parents?" she asked. Paul thought it was weird and said he was raised in a shelter and had never seen his parents. "Yes, my DNA matches hers, and she is my sister. But why are you asking all this?" "Because I'm your mother," she answered, sending shivers down Paul's spine. "You are my mother," he gasped, tearing up. Paul felt his whole world ripping apart right before his eyes. He fell to his knees and cried on his mother's lap. "Mom, I know it was not your fault, and circumstances forced you to abandon us. I'm glad that I could take my sister, and though I was unaware we were related by blood, I think God planned to reunite us this way. But son, I am such a wicked mother who deserted her children. Why would you forgive me? I'm heartless and cruel," Dorothy sobbed. "Mom, we all make mistakes, and as humans, our biggest strength is the ability to forgive. I forgive you, and I don't want you to feel guilty about what you did, all right?" Dorothy shed tears of joy and hugged her son. Her guilt slowly faded, and her heart lightened up. "Mom, please come home with me. You don't have to struggle alone anymore. You have me, your daughter, and my wife to care for you." Those words were enough to warm Dorothy's heart. She happily agreed and moved in with Paul. That day, the loving son who yearned for family life had his prayers answered. Although Paul could no longer perceive Miley as his daughter, he was happy. As an added joy, Avril announced her pregnancy shortly after, and it appeared fate had indeed weaved some of the best plans for this family.